Welcome to my Inkscape Inkstitch tutorial number 2. If you haven't watched my first tutorial, I strongly suggest that you go do that now. In the second tutorial, we're going to make this nice little Linux emblem right here. Go into Inkscape. I already have it set for 4x4. Document properties. Width 4, height 4, and I have inch units. The first thing we're going to do is create the word Linux because I want to line up my icons to the word Linux. So we're going to type Linux. I want it to be a little bit smaller than the box because I'm going to take the L and make it bigger. So that's actually about right. Once you've done that, hit path, object to path. This is not a Inkstitch lettering, so you have to tell Inkstitch how to do this. So the first thing is object to path. The second thing is go to extensions, Inkstitch, fill tools, break apart, complex. Now that you've done that, if you go into your objects layers, you'll see our text has now become paths. Each one is a path. I want to take the L on Linux and we're going to lock that in so the ratio stays the same. We're going to make that a little bit bigger. On the I dot, I'm just going to delete that because I want that space reserved for those icons. I'm going to select the whole thing and then I'm going to align it about middle. That should be all that we need to do, and we're going to troubleshoot to make sure that we're good so far. All shapes are valid. Awesome. So the first one we have is Monjero. If you watched my first tutorial, then you know that you've seen that one done already, so I'm not going to go over it too much. I'm just going to let you see what I do here. You can scroll, and I want to turn off snap because it irritates me. You can do scroll by holding down the control button and using the mouse wheel. Make sure you make it the size you want it before you do everything that needs to be done to it so you're not redoing your troubleshooting. Of course, this isn't going to look exactly like the other one, but we'll try to get it pretty close. Okay, I like that. We're going to trace bitmap. I usually use brightness cutoff. Yes, it's black just like it was in the first video. I'm going to take my image, my original image, which is green, my original image. I'm just going to delete that. Now I'm working with path image. Go extensions, Inkstitch, fill tools, break apart, hit apply, and close. That should be good. I'm going to highlight that. And then we're going to troubleshoot to make sure that it works. All shapes are valid. I'm going to take the 3 paths and then I'm going to group them together. Then we're going to go get our next image. Our next image, according to the one I did previous, is the Ubuntu icon. And I think I may have to make that a little smaller, but we'll go with it. We'll do that if we need to. Ubuntu, hit open. This one's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. I'll show you what I mean. Size that down. going to go ahead and make that one just a wee smaller. Oh, I didn't change the color on it, did I? Okay, that's better. Okay, back to Ubuntu. Path, trace bitmap. See, it doesn't come out so well, so we're going to try some other things. What's edge detection give us? Well, it's a little better. Color quantization, nope. How about auto trace? Auto trace doesn't usually work. Let's see what auto trace gave us, if anything. It did give us something, didn't it? Okay, that's what I had last time, so we're going to go with that. I'm going to take my original image, going to delete that. I'm going to break apart, extensions, Inkstitch, fill tools, missed. Extensions, Inkstitch, fill tools, break apart. So now that we've done that, each one of these things is its own thing now. So I'm going to highlight one of the round objects, and I'm going to push Control D, which will duplicate it. Now we have one down here. And then we'll take one of the legs, Control D, duplicate that one, bring it over here, click it again so you can spin it. Line it up about where we need it, and then run it in. A little bit of trial and error, just get it as close as you can. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. I'm going to run with that one. Then we're going to, I'm pushing Control and then I'm clicking each one of these. We're going to take these all and we're going to group them together. I'm going to hit that group, extensions, Inkstitch, troubleshoot. All shapes are valid, so that one should be good. We're going to line that up where we want it. Scroll out so we can see a bigger picture. Yep, I like it. What was next? Next one was arch. Hit file, import. Bring in arch. Doesn't matter what color it is because you should have seen by now that once you trace from bitmap, it doesn't keep the color anyway. So we're going to make it about the size that we want it. Path, trace bitmap. Let's go back to brightness cutoff. It's a little ragged, isn't it? I don't want that one. Well, let's try auto trace. Yep, we got an auto trace. So original image, I'm going to delete. Go back to that path. Extensions, Inkstitch, fill and break apart. I know there's only one object there, but just do it to make sure. And since it didn't change anything, we should be good to go. Let's change it to a more arch looking color. That's pretty good. Highlight it again. Extensions, Inkstitch, troubleshoot. It is valid. Our next one, Suze. Give us an import. Import Suze. Yeah, I know it's also pronounced Sousa. So, I'm an English speaker. Suze looks like somebody's name's Suze. So, don't hold it against me. About the size we want it, get it about where we want it, and path, trace bitmap, brightness cutoff. Well, let's see if auto trace will work again, because it gives us a little bit better, doesn't it? It does. Right color and everything. Wow. That one worked good. Don't usually work that good, but I'll take it. And then, highlight it. Break apart. Yep, you know what's coming next. Break apart. Hit apply. So this is what we're left with after that break apart. Yep. This is when it gets interesting. So that's the eye. And that's the rest of it. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to try to break apart again. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Nope, it didn't give us anything additional. So all we have is a green dot with an eyeball. So I'm going to highlight the whole thing. Control Z until I get back to my original image, which is that. I'm going to delete the one that happened. Okay. So we're going to try this again with a different bitmap. Auto trace is what it was. Let's go into multiple scans. Let's see what happens. And just select grays. Might be a better option. Let's see what happens. Oh, I like all the things. Yeah, I think that's a better option. Take my original image and delete it. I'm going to highlight the whole thing. Let's pick. Interesting. So the background. Yep, okay, that's the background. That's green. I'm going to take that background and just delete it. So with it highlighted, we're going to troubleshoot. Let's see what happens. Lots of stuff. That's fine. So the first small fill. I don't know what that says. Okay. Go to troubleshoot, delete. Highlight that whole thing. We're going to hit extensions, fill tool, break apart. We haven't done that yet. Close. Do we have any more? Not really. Okay, highlight that. Extensions, Inkstitch, troubleshoot, clean document. Sometimes this does magic. 2 elements removed. And sometimes that makes your image disappear. I have had that happen. So, alright, highlighted, troubleshoot again. Ooh, awesome. And that's actually a better representation than what I ended up with in my original. I like it. Well, I might have to keep this one as my real deal. Okay, I'm going to scoot a couple of these over just a little bit. And last but not least, Red Hat. Import Red Hat. Size that down. Okay. Path, trace bitmap. I'm actually going to keep it on that same multi-scan since it works so good on that Sousa. Alright, original image. delete. Let's go back to that and see what we have for layers. Holy smokes. Okay. So extensions, Inkstitch, fill tools, break apart, apply, close. Strange. We do break apart and it ends up with less objects. It's interesting. So that should be the base. Just close the eye on it to see if anything changes. If nothing changes, delete it. It's not necessary. That's the bottom brim, that's the top brim, and that's the belt around it. So on the bottom and top brim, we're going to pick red. And I'm going to leave that one as black. Or I might go, okay, let's make it dark gray. I like that. That way, if nothing else, it'll stop. It'll stop there. And highlight all of it. Extensions, Inkstitch, troubleshoot. All shapes are valid. So I'm not going to highlight anything. By not highlighting anything, it's going to check the whole document. Let's check the whole document. Troubleshoot. All shapes are valid. It should stitch. Extensions, Inkstitch, visualize and export. And remember that this does take it a few seconds to happen. Awesome. We have that's actually going to be my new file because it came out better than the original did. I'm going to show you one more thing before we call it. I'm going to highlight each one of these images. I'm going to hit Extensions, Inkstitch, and go to Parameters. It's going to give you a little preview over here. I want my stitches to be a little bit more satin. So we're going to, spaces between rows, we're going to cut that down to 0.15. We added about 1,000 stitches, so it's not bad. That's much better. I hit apply and quit. And I may do the same thing on the lettering. Let's see what that looks like in parameters. Let's take it down to 2.0. 3,231 stitches becomes 3,724 stitches. That number right there. I think I'm going to keep that. Hit apply and quit. And there you have it. And my embroidery machine always, okay, before I do any more, always save whatever you're doing, always save it as an SVG. So I'm going here, new all Linux. I know it's not all Linux, but it's close enough. New all Linux. Always save your file as an SVG, because once you save it as a embroidery pattern, you can't really edit it unless you're just adding another embroidery pattern to it. So if I wanted to edit any of this, I'd have to reload the SVG. So now that it's saved as an SVG, now you can save it as whatever file your embroidery machine takes. In my case, I like the .pes. Hit save. It does take it a moment to save as a embroidery pattern. But if I go into embroidery, new all Linux, new all Linux.pes, and it will. I associated it to Inkscape. But if you load the .pes, this is what the loading the PES gives you, and you can't really, there's nothing to edit because it's all machine instruction basically. So if you're going to edit that, you need to save the SVG. That's all for this tutorial. I hope it helped you out. My next tutorial, I'm going to do a applique design so you can see how that works. Thanks for watching.